Hey, what's up? Wardloop here, and in today's video we're going to talk about cast when damage taken. We're going to talk about Wardloop, and let's try out the Fid. Hopefully this goes well. This will be the first time I've tried Fid with this build, but I feel like I can probably handle it. Now, the way to start this up, we're going to hit all our flasks, we're going to weapon swap, and then we're going to put on our Righteous Fire. Don't forget I always forget the Righteous Fire. And then we're going to come over here, and hopefully this goes okay. I haven't got sound on, so I'm not going to be able to hear any of the call-outs. Oh, like that would have been really great to know what's happening. So Chayula's down. I guess we'll just stand here at the edge of that. And then somebody else. Oh yeah, the Synthet is here. Nope. Losing a lot of life now. But this build, we have been, I want to say min-maxing, but we've been trying it out the last few days on stream, and I'd always, unsurprising that we died, to be perfectly honest. The Fid, you need a lot of mechanical skill, I think, to be able to dodge stuff, and maybe sound is also pretty useful. So let's see if we can just start the engine running, and we're off again. So this build, very, very good, I think. I've really enjoyed messing around with this and getting it into a state that is, usable. It's an excellent mapper. It can't take really, really big fizz hits though, so any of these shaper slams that hit us, they're going to be, or beams, they're going to be pretty difficult to deal with. And we'll go over the, oh, I don't have Zealotry enabled. That would be quite helpful, I think. But we'll go over all the mechanics in a second as soon as we've killed these guys. I think it's just Adziri left. Oh, no, we're done. We're done. That was it. And with Zealotry not on for most of the time, that's smart of me. Okay, so Wardloop and cast when damage taken are actually two different things, but they're almost always used in the same build. So this is a cast when damage taken Wardloop Occultist using Forbidden Rite. And let's talk about Wardloop first. So if I open my character sheet here and I go to the miscellaneous tab, then I've got 98% increased flask duration modifier. I've got minus 17 flask charges used modifier and 155% increased flask charges gained modifier. And these are the three things that I need to know in order to be able to figure out if my flask, which gives me ward, it's called Olroth's Resolve over here, if it is going to continually apply its effect, even if we're not killing monsters, even if we're just standing still. So if you see down here, mine's continually on, and Olroth's Resolve says ward does not break during effect, and that means that normally the way ward works is you take one hit, and it's a shield for your life, and you take one hit and the ward crumbles, but it mitigates the hit, and then it takes a while to regenerate. And with Olroth's Resolve, it says ward does not break during effect, which means that we are basically immune to damage, provided the damage is lower than our maximum ward. So I got 1,476 ward. And normally, if I take the flask off and put it back on again, our ward is actually 4,382, but Olroth's Resolve gives you 70% less ward during effect. So the more ward you have, the better, because that means the max hit you can take from whatever is hitting you is increased. And that's why we're using this Skin of the Lords, because it gives you 100% increased global defenses, and that applies to ward as well. So if I take it off, then I go down to 927 ward, but if I put it back on, back to up 1,476. So Wardloop is essentially just making sure you have enough flask charges, reduced flask charges gained, and increased flask charges acquired in order to continually have Olroth's Resolve being used. Now, I've got a resource that we can use to check, so let me just find that. Okay, so here's the 322 cast when damage build calculator. So this is a Flask Calculator. So in here you can select if you're Scion / Pathfinder. If you're a Scion, obviously you're taking the Pathfinder ascendancy, and how many flasks you have. And this will give you a Flask Coefficient, and also a big green flasks work, which is useful for me because I'm not really sure about the coefficient. So if I delete all these numbers here, and then we go and put in our miscellaneous stuff. So we've got flask duration modifier is 98% here. Flask charges gained is 155. Reduce flask charges used, so that's flask charges used modifier minus 17, so that's 17% reduced flask charges. Our Olroth's flask duration is 6.4 seconds. So put in 6.4, and then Olroth's charges consumed. So ours is consumes 56 out of 60 because we've got 42% reduced increased charges per use. So 56 here, and then it says flasks work for and we've got a flask coefficient of 1.68, which means that if we put on 3 here, then we actually get we can actually have 3 flasks. 4, no. But 3, yes. If you're a Scion or a Pathfinder, then this is more than enough for 4 flasks. But we are an occultist because I wanted to try out Arakali's Fang as well. We were doing a blight the other day and we dropped a squire, so I figured we'd re-roll this into Arakali's Fang because I've never done that one either. Anyway, so that's Wardloop in a nutshell. Now let's talk about castman damage taken. Obviously, we've got our Wardloop running, so we're not taking any damage from anything that's under 1,476 as an instance of damage. And we're constantly triggering. We've got this custom damage taken support, and we've got this summon skeletons here. So we're constantly summoning these skeletons, and they're dying very, very quickly. And then on minion death, we're taking all this physical damage, and we have to reduce the amount of time that the skeletons are alive for drastically. So we're using from dust 2 dust jewels, and we're using 2 with 20% reduced skeleton duration, and we're using 1 with 19. So I think I have all mine around here. Is this the last one? Yeah, there we go. So I've got 2 over here with 20% reduced skeleton duration, and I've got 1 here with 19% skeleton duration, and then we've got another 40% here, so 40% reduced minion duration with anomalous minion speed support. And this in total brings us to 99, so they have 99% less time that they're around for, and then they immediately damage us, and then we cast all of our spells, and also we've got Divergent Castman Damage Taken support on this, so we cast the skeletons again, and then they die, and they trigger all our other spells, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. So that's how the loop works. Let's talk a little bit about our skill tree. So for our skill tree, obviously things that matter to us, the way I am scaling the skills here is I'm using Forbidden Rite, which also damages us. So we get even more frequent damage taken from this. So it deals 5% of your maximum energy shield as base chaos damage and 12% of your maximum life as base chaos damage. Now I've got a lot of chaos res. I'm using Progenesis just because I was mapping to, I think we're level 99, and we did it only in maps. We didn't use any 5-ways for this. So I was just using Progenesis because it makes you much more tanky. It's just really comfy, and I like mapping. And this is a excellent mapper. Honestly, it's really, really fantastic. In Breach, it really, really shines too, because all of our projectiles that we get from Forbidden Rite and the other ones that we get from Hexblast and Souldrend, which were the other 2 spells that I'm using, those they basically auto-target stuff. So they go and seek people out, and they go off and kill them. And using these together, it means that you can just wander around. It's pretty much a walking simulator. You can just wander around and you kill stuff. And that means that we need to care about a few things: scaling damage on our chaos skill gems and flasks. And, ideally ward, if we can get it on the tree. Doesn't really exist, but it kind of does. So we're using a Brutal Restraint for Balbala, which turns this Hexmaster Keystone into the Traitor, which is flasks gain 4 charges per empty flask slot. So that's filling up the flask thing we need. And over here I've got some of the notables I've got have been transformed into increased flask charges gained, and I got Onslaught, which is very nice. And then we got crit strike chance because this is a crit build as well, and some more flask charges gained. And then projectile damage because sure. And then also we're stacking a bunch of power charges, so we've got lots of charges over here. We've got all this chaos damage over here as well, and lose 10% of life and energy shield when you use a chaos skill. Brilliant for custom damage taken. We have a 10% increased spell damage, 8 passive large cluster, and we've got Arcane Heroism, Conjured Wall, and Essence Rush. We're not taking Arcane Heroism, but we are taking Essence Rush, which is increased damage while leeching and gives us leech, and also this spell damage for Conjured Wall, which gives us block chance as well. And we're taking a few block chance when we're using a staff because we're using a Cane of Kulamak. I'm just going to put these back in. And for our medium passives, we're taking 6 passive medium flask effect duration clusters. And on those, we want 2 things that you have to have essentially, or I mean, you can tweak this a lot based on the calculator that we link in the description down below. But you have to have fasting because fasting is it's just like 20% increased flask charges gained. And you also want the 3% increased flask charges gained small passives as well. So all of these give at least lots of flask effect duration and lots of flask charges gained. And you can see I've got flask charges gained, fasting, and chaos resistance is nice. And then over here we've got one more large passive, and it's chaos damage. So we've got Touch of Cruelty, Unholy Grace, Unwaveringly Evil, and we're only taking Unholy Grace and Touch of Cruelty. You can play around with these if you want. Mainly we're going for the 30% increased chaos damage. We've got another 6 passive flask effect duration medium cluster with fasting, and this one's got Brood for potency because that gives us a bunch of extra flask charges gained and also damage over time. And then we've got a Watcher's Eye, which is giving us increased crit strike chance against enemies on consecrated ground while affected by zealotry, and we're using a blessing for zealotry. So we've got another power charge over here. So if we look in my booties over here, I've got zealotry, I've got RF, I've got Divergent Eternal Blessing support, and I've got Flame Dash. So these are zealotry is really, really good for this build. It's absolutely fantastic. Oh, I can't put that on anymore. I'm too stupid now. I've been messing around with my stats quite a bit, but I'm going to put that on, and then we're going to talk about our gear. Okay, so for our gear, there are a few things that are mandatory, I would say. There are a few things that are definitely mandatory, and there are some things that are mandatory, I would say, and there are some things where you have a little bit of freedom for them. So the first things that the absolutely mandatory things are the Heartbound loops, and you don't need an implicit on these or a particular implicit. So as you can see, I've got 14 Aures on this one. I've got Zealotry has increased aura effect. Zealotry is the best in slot for this, but these have to have 420 fizz damage taken on minion death, which means they have to be catalyzed. So you can't just get a bunch of them and corrupt them. You have to get a bunch of them, catalyze them, and then corrupt them, and it's annoying. I've done it a lot. I think this is the best one I got. I bought this one because it was difficult to find anything else. Then semi-mandatory, I would say Skin of the Lords is... Actually, this is probably mandatory. You can't really scale ward any other way other than by increased global defenses, which is why we have on our tree all these 3% increased global defense nodes around here. Because that means that we get a bunch extra ward, like lots and lots extra ward, which means we can take bigger hits, which means we have greater survivability. So the Skin of the Lords, pretty important. There are a lot of keystones because Skin of the Lords always comes with a keystone. There are a lot of keystones that brick the build. I'll put a list of them down in the description below. You can check those out. But this I prefer green, green, red, blue, blue, blue. There are a few other options here. I think you could probably swap you could probably swap Arcane Surge support out if you have a method of getting Arcane Surge, and you could put in like a level 4 in power or something like that. There are a few things that you could do, but this is what I would suggest. I think the best in slot Skin of the Lords is going to be one that gives you Mind over Matter for 1 whole point saved on the tree. So that's really, really good. For our weapon, we're using Cane of Kulamak, and these are the things that I went for. I think they're honestly the best ones that you can get. So level of socketed support gems with quality of socketed support gems, increased spell damage, where you also get non-chaos damage as extra chaos damage, and then crit strike multiplier while a rare or unique enemy is nearby. So I think this is the best stuff that you can get. I'm not sure if there's anything else I would really take over these on a Cane of Kulamak, but these are honestly really fantastic. And then for our amulet, we're using a Fractured Global Crit Strike Multi amulet with +2. And then you can put whatever else you want on here. I went for Fire and Chaos Res as my Vaal Chaos Unveil. Sadly, I got the tier 8 flat lightning damage to attacks. Never lucky. But then this is just a great place to fill out resistances and stat gaps that you have. And then for your belt, I would highly recommend either a T1 top roll fracture on Flask Effectuation or reduce fast charges used. Those are the two things I would absolutely recommend you go for. And then you can, and I just used harvest spamming until I got, I had a fracture, and then I used harvest spamming for the other one. And then I used a Suffixes Can't Be Changed, Vaal Chaos, and then I got cooldown recovery rate, which is really good, really useful. If not, you're going to be crafting that on there yourself. But belts can be, I would say this costs like 1 divine outside of the Suffixes Can't Be Changed. But if you're just going to get if you don't really care about life so much or anything like that, then you can just get something very, very quick for 1 divine. And I think the fracture cost me 80 chaos, something like that. It's pretty cheap. When it comes to boots, helmets, and gloves, you just need really high ward. That's the main thing you need. Anything else is all arbitrary, or is just you filling in bits on your build. So for these, I would recommend getting a item level 85 base. Don't do 83 like I did and wonder why you never hit double T1. Get an item level 85 base. If you can get one with something fractured on it, even better. But you're looking for T1 flat ward and T1 increased ward, which will hit 1 in 80, 1 in 82 dense fossils. So you can just use dense fossils in a single resonator, and I think if we go to this tab over here, I still have a bunch of these. So you can just take some gauntlets like this and maybe make them magic and hit it with a dense fossil, and it's going to get lots of defense stuff. And ideally, as your prefixes, you want flat maximum increased flat ward and increased maximum ward. And on my I would say on gloves you're looking for at least 400, on boots you're looking for at least 400, and on helmet at least 600. And obviously this is your survivability, so the more you get, the better it is. For a helmet enchantment, we're going to obviously take Forbidden Rite Fire as an additional projectile, because then it's just more damage. But if you look at my helmet here, I've got T1 flat ward, I've got T1 increased ward, and I luckily got T2 combination increased and stun and block recovery ward. Really, really good. And then you're just gonna throw on whatever resistance you want, or you're gonna, prefixes can't be changed, and harvest, reforge, whatever it is you're gonna take. For my boots, you can see here I got very lucky. I got T1 increased for the ward and T1 flat ward as well, and 30% move speed. You can't, I do not think that item level 86 ward items exist. So you can't get T1 move speed, you can't get 35 move speed, but I got 30 and that's pretty decent. And then I just, I did previously cannot be changed, I got Dex and Int on my Unveil, and then I added on Cold Res and Chaos and Cold Res. So that's what you need for your boots, helmets, and gloves. For gloves, the implicits you're looking for are chance to unnerve enemies for 4 seconds on hit, 8% increased effect of your marks because we're using a mark on this. For the hat, you're looking for 31% increased spell damage while there's a unique enemy around you, and 4% increased damage per power charge, which is really good because, again, stacking power charges. And then for your boots, you're looking for increased cooldown recovery rate in order to hit a breakpoint, and then drops brittle ground while moving, lasting 3 seconds. And, or I mean, you could go for 4 seconds or 5 seconds if you want, but it just means that you got more crit strike chance. So that's basically all it is for the gear. And for your Olroths, ideally you want to have a very low increased charges per use, and make sure you quality the flask as well. Get a Hillock in research, I believe it is. He does flask quality. Yeah, so if you do a mastermind and you have Hillock at tier 3 in research, then you'll get a 28% quality flask. Chuck that on your Olroth and it'll really help out with this. As I said, I'm using a Progenesis, but a lot of people, most people I think, are using a let's see, they're using a Dying Sun because it's just, I mean, you get 2 extra projectiles during the effect. Let's just take a quick look at a map here. So I got some maps probably around here, maybe this one. There's a couple of modifiers this build can't deal with. It can do all the reflect stuff. This one looks particularly rippy, so let's definitely take that. And then let's zoom out a little bit on our character. And I think if we maybe take Breach on this as well, then we'll be able to see what this build is like. So, as I said, there's a couple of things that we do to start up the build. So we start all our flasks going, and then we're going to quickly weapon swap. So that brings up all those spirits, and then they die, and then they kick off our cast when damage taken loop. I have Zealotry on here. I need to remember to put that on. I always forget. And also Righteous Fire. I always forget to put that on too. We'll bring up the mini-map. Oh, we took a very big hit there. So maybe this is one of those builds, one of those maps that we can't run. Or perhaps it's just a beast. So you can see here, you can pretty much just run around and everything dies. And you can even stand still. There is a shrine that you cannot take, the Divine Shrine, that, because it means that you don't take damage, so your cast when damage taken loop stops. So that's bad, don't take that. Ghosted enemies can be a little bit difficult too. That's one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of this. I really like this build, but it could be, if it's got, I think it's Zealot's Grip or Thug's Grip. I'm going to put it up on the screen, whichever grip it is. But one of the Ghosted mods steals flask charges, and our flask charges are our lives. So here's the breach, and you can just stand here in the middle, but it's way more efficient to actually run around inside the breach. And you see here, you could just run through everything. Everything dies, and all the projectiles just automatically seek stuff out. We have been playing around with this on stream quite a bit, so we did AFK Blights as well. So we got to, we did T13, 14, 15, and I think 16 as well. So it could be useful for that. There's one monster modifier that's really annoying, and it's those proximity shield bubbles. And if you go into one of those, it stops. Your ward loop stops because you have like massive cooldown recovery rate suddenly because you're inside a temporal shield. So that's really frustrating, and I believe the Scion version of this gets around it because it's using Ice Spear, or it's using cold skills. So, and look at this, see all these enemies, you could just run through the whole lot, and here's the here it is. Here's the temporal bubble, and our thing stopped, and we just have to start it up again. And yeah, this is the only issue, really, for me. For mapping, that's the only real downside is that those shield guys, you can't just like turn your brain off completely. You have to think just a little bit, and thinking is one of my main weaknesses, along with reading. Anyway, so that's what a map looks like. Let's just get into the conclusion. Okay, and in conclusion, this is a really good build. It's really interesting. I think end of league is one of the best times to try this out as well, because if you have a bunch of money that it's going to rot in standard, then this is a great time to try out some builds that you may never normally go for, or you would definitely not do at league launch. Path of Exile is definitely a game about trying out interesting mechanics and builds, and this is 100% one of those. I learned a ton whilst we were putting this together. I definitely will, like, when I do Expedition in the future, I'm definitely going to throw a couple of dense fossils on the runic gear that I find, in the hopes that I'll be able to sell it to a cast and damage taken person. But the whole mechanic was really, really interesting. I really love it. And I think next league, I'm probably going to try out the Scion one. I think it's even more powerful. It has a few things over the occultist one, so it has 4 flasks are relatively easy to get with the Scion. You can also you can have creeping frost, so you can put a degen under those temporal shield people, and that kind of mitigates that problem. So that's really, really interesting. I would put this as like a A-tier boss mapping character. It's fantastic for that. For bossing, I don't know. For bossing for you, probably A-tier. Bossing for me, maybe less. I'm not mechanically good at this game. So, as you saw with the Feared at the intro, like, I could have probably died at least 2 times less. But I didn't, because I'm bad at the game. And that's fine. But learning things about this game is what drives me forward all the time. So if you are mechanically skilled at the game, I think this is great. If you can avoid big shaper slams, then it's really, really easy. But some bosses do hit hard sometimes. I tried my first Uber with this boss. All 6 portals gone, but we did a quarter of the Uber boss's life down, so that was pretty decent. I think I would definitely try it with the Scion version of this, and we probably will in 323, so stay tuned for that. If you like this kind of thing, then come and join us over at twitch.tv/lifewithoutpants. We're streaming every day, and this is the kind of stuff that we get up to, like science, re-rolling many things many times, and trying to figure out how the game works. And wow, there's so much more to learn about this game. I've been playing. My account was created before it released, so I've been playing for a very long time, and I'm still learning stuff about it. And learning these builds is, honestly, it's a joy. And that's why we're going to try the Arakali's Fang next. Anyway, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this explained casting damage taken and Wardloop for you a little bit. And I hope you're kind to everyone you meet. I love you all very much, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.